Let me start with a simple question. What does the Ganga mean to you? For some, it's spiritual. Ma Ganga, the eternal mother. For others, it's practical, a source of water, food, energy, and life. For most of us, it's both. But here's something we often overlook. Behind the sacredness, behind the canals, pumps, and pipelines, lies a treaty. A 30-year-old agreement quietly determining how much of the Ganga's water flows across borders during the dry season. It's called the Ganga Water Sharing Treaty, signed between India and Bangladesh in 1996. At the time, it was visionary. India, as the upper riparian nation, stepped up to share dry season flows with goodwill and generosity. It brought stability, it created predictability, and it served both countries well for a time. But here's the reality. That treaty is set to expire in 2026, and the world we live in today is nothing like the one that existed in 1996. Let's understand what's changed. The population in the Ganga basin has grown by more than 150 million people since the treaty was signed. The dry season flow of the Ganga has declined steadily, especially between January and May. Uttarakhand's glaciers, the Ganga's source, are retreating at a rate of up to 10 meters per year in some zones. The Farakka barrage, once a symbol of water control, is now choked with silt and inefficiency. Urban demand for water in the basin is projected to rise by 60% by 2030. And while all of this is happening, Nepal, which contributes over 40% of the Ganga's dry season flow, remains outside the treaty. Bangladesh, the downstream partner, is asking for more water guarantees even in drought years. China is expanding its presence in South Asia's rivers through infrastructure, finance, and diplomacy. So ask yourself, is it wise for India to keep following a 30-year-old framework that no longer fits today's needs? Let's be clear. This is not just about cutting off water. This is about updating the rules to reflect today's science, people, and politics. So, what should a renewed Ganga treaty look like? Here's what India must push for. A flexible duration, not a 30-year-old lock-in. The current treaty runs for 3 decades without review. But river systems don't follow calendars. They follow climate, rainfall, and glacial melt. We need a smarter system. 10 to 15 years treaty duration with built-in technical reviews every 3 to 5 years. Let the agreement adapt to reality, not trap us in the past. We need real-time, transparent data sharing. The 1996 treaty used flow averages from 1948 to 1988. But climate change has rewritten those numbers. Today, India has satellite-backed data from ISRO, digitized gauges from the Central Water Commission, predictive modeling from the IMD and NIH. Let's use that. Let's build a shared digital dashboard with Bangladesh, led by Indian institutions, so decisions are based on facts, not guesswork. We need minimum ecological flow, but with Indian priority. Yes, rivers must live. Fish, wetlands, soil health matter, but so do the farms of eastern UP and Bihar. So do the cities of Varanasi, Patna, and Kolkata. Let's enshrine a minimum ecological flow but also include climate contingency clauses. In drought years, India must retain sovereign flexibility to prioritize drinking water and agriculture. Include Nepal. Move toward a basin-wide framework. Right now, we are sharing a river downstream while ignoring what's happening upstream. Nepal's water usage, dams, diversions, hydropower directly affect India's dry season flow. India must lead the call for a Ganga Basin Coordination Mechanism or a parallel agreement with Nepal focused on transparency, not control. Because you can't manage what you can't monitor. Strengthen the Joint Rivers Commission. Currently, the JRC is underpowered and underutilized. We need a professional secretariat, annual public reports, technical independence, and the power to resolve disputes without political stalling. Let the JRC work like a 21st century institution, not a legacy relic. Bring Indian states into the process. Let's not forget, This isn't just about a bilateral issue, it's federal too. States like Bihar, Jharkhand, UP, West Bengal depend heavily on the Ganga. They deserve a seat at the table, representation in all treaty consultations, and a role in monitoring and feedback. Water diplomacy starts at home. Integrate regional development projects. This is where India can lead with strategy and sensitivity. We can turn water sharing into shared economic growth through joint inland navigation projects, flood management infrastructure, shared clean energy generation, and climate resilient initiatives in the Sundarbans. This strengthens cooperation without surrendering control. Now, some may ask, why must India act first? Because we are the upper riparian country, because we have the technical depth, the diplomatic weight, and the most to lose. And because China is already moving into spaces where India hesitates. Let's not repeat Teesta's mistake with Ganga. Let's lead boldly. This isn't just about cubic metrics of water, it's about food, energy, jobs, ecosystems, diplomacy, and identity. The Ganga is not just a river, she is a national asset, a geopolitical force, and a climate frontline. The treaty may expire in 2026, but the moment to act is 2025. Because these negotiations don't happen overnight, they need technical groundwork, political alignment, and regional trust. So I say this, let's not treat this as a routine renegotiation. Let's treat it as an opportunity to build a modern treaty with science at the core, states at the table, Nepal in the conversation, and India at the helm. Because the Ganga flows to the sea, but her course, her future, her strength is shaped here. And the time to shape it is now.